With so much confusion going on in the world, many people are now going inside for answers, which is a good thing. So here's a method for making that truth-finding process easier. So one great thing coming out of this time in world history is that some people are now much more motivated to look inside themselves for answers instead of looking externally. There's so much chaos, contradiction, confusion, conflict, worrying opinions about what's going on in the world. And after a while, it gets exhausting for many people and they pull away from it all for a while, which I think is a good thing. I mean, stay informed on important things, but don't get pulled into all the drama, letting it throw you off. Keeping your emotional frequency more positive right now is very important. When you go inside for answers, then you start to become your own barometer of what's right, what's true, what's the best path, how to best look at things in a way that best serves you and those concerned. And you stop letting other people's energy affect you in negative ways. That said, when it comes to truth with a capital T, I believe we all have a part of it. And when we come together, we can start to see a bigger picture of the whole thing. That, of course, requires open-mindedness to alternative opinions, like really listening, really considering many points of view, and then going inside and mulling on it and synthesizing it down to something that makes sense for you in your life right now. So there's the larger truths of the world, which I think are accessible, and then there's your truth that's useful for you and your circumstances. And somewhere along the way, those two need to line up if you want to live a good life with a good moral compass in place, while also remaining true to your uniqueness. So to that end, I started sharing something I've been using for years with some of my clients, and they're finding it very helpful. This that I'm going to tell you about today is like training wheels for opening up communication with the higher mind. And it's a form of divination called dowsing, using a pendulum. Maybe you're familiar with it. If so, this episode might open your mind to several other kinds of possibilities using this method that you hadn't considered. Or maybe pendulum dowsing is way too far down the woo-woo path for you. If so, I invite you to turn off this episode now, or you could keep an open mind, as I was very skeptical at first, and now I'm a firm believer, because I've gotten some pretty accurate answers. It's very easy and it's fun to use and only takes a few minutes, depending on how many questions you have. And once you get good at it, you'd be amazed at how accurate you can become. There are many methods of divination that have been used all over the world since the beginning of recorded history. And today, millions of people use them all the time and rely on divination as a method of making decisions. The problem is many forms of divination, like pendulum dowsing, have been invalidated through the ages. I think that's in part due to the fact that people in power positions wanting control over others don't want them accessing their own inner truth, as then they're much harder to control. People in powerful positions, leaders, I believe, should want those they lead to have this access to their own personal power, wisdom, and inner truth, and be a leader in service to those they are leading, not trying to have power over them. And I think we are moving out of an era where leaders who use this kind of power over methodology versus power with are becoming less popular and are falling away. And that's mainly because people don't want those kind of leaders in power anymore. And what you might not know is that not only have people used pendulums for dowsing all through recorded history, but they still are used in unlikely places. For example, commercial ventures. Historically, pendulums are widely known for locating water, iron, oil, and even silver and gold. Dowsing rods are possibly more commonly used for those kinds of purposes rather than a pendulum, but there are people and that's their whole job or a huge part of their consulting job. They get paid very well for it. So pendulum dowsing is the use of a weighted object on a string or a chain to get an answer. And usually you'd use a yes or no or true or false format. But if you use a pendulum chart, like I'm going to talk about, you can use it for a lot more than just yes, no, true, false. And you can see this chart and get it as a free download if you go to the link in the show notes. Now, pendulums are used in a multitude of ways, and I'll give you some examples to broaden your perspective of what's possible. You don't need a pendulum chart like the one I'm making available to you. I just find it useful to give me more complex answers, like spelling out a word or getting a percentage or finding out why the pendulum won't answer a certain question. Now, in case something like this is spooky to you, like maybe you did the Ouija board when you were a kid and kind of freaked you out, it's not the tool that's spooky, it's what's the energy you're calling on to answer the question. And I believe it's very important to be using it as a go-between between your conscious mind and your higher mind. I say this because I often am encouraging people to access their own higher mind wisdom, but often my clients tell me that they just don't get anything, their mind goes blank, and that's often just because they haven't tuned into the right radio station. There's too much interference, and you're just not used to it. It's like building a muscle. So a pendulum is a great way to open up that relationship and lines of communication. That said, if you aren't really clear who you're asking questions of, I do believe there are forces that might try to hijack your answer. The lower mind, your ego needs, or even some disembodied entity, if you believe in that kind of thing. But you can set a strong, clear boundary, clear intention that you only want it for the truth for you, from your higher mind, from your highest wisdom. So use whatever words feel appropriate for you. Some people just call it the deep unconscious mind, asking the universe, asking the great creator, benevolent angelic forces, whatever you want to call it. I just think it's important that you are clear that it needs to be a benevolent source of information that wants to support you and doesn't want to mislead you. Then once you set that clear boundary, set that clear intention, and once you do it enough, you'll sense when you're really tapped into that. And someday you'll have a clearer connection, and some days you won't. But the more you practice it, as I said, the easier and stronger that connection becomes. So a pendulum can be a necklace you own, as long as it has a pointy end rather than a rounded end. That's because you want to be clear where the pendulum is pointing. Now, you can literally order one on Amazon or go to a crystal shop and get one. You can buy a pendulum by itself, or people sell like a whole set with the pendulum and a set of charts and a book on how to do it. Or you can just take any kind of pointy object, put it on a string or a chain. So use whatever feels appropriate to you that has good energy on it. Now, some people like to cleanse their pendulum ahead of time. And the way I do it is I just put it in purified water in a bowl and then put sea salt in it and leave it overnight. Often I use pink Himalayan salt. Then it helps to build a relationship with the pendulum process by just finding a quiet, uninterrupted space with a flat surface under you like a table so you can support your elbow as you hold the pendulum. I like to keep a notebook handy or a notepad to keep track of my questions and answers. That way I can see how accurate I am a few days later, or I can see maybe how some answers change over time, depending on different circumstances affecting the situation. So once you're settled in, I always think it's good to take a few low, slow, deep breaths and center yourself and just get clear on your intention that you want to connect with this higher mind, this higher self, whatever resonates with you, and then just ask some obvious questions to get you used to the pendulum and the pendulum used to you. For example, you can say, show me a yes, and usually that's swinging up and down. Show me a no, and that's usually swinging left to right and back again. Of course, if you use the chart, there's a place in the chart for no, yes, and maybe. And so if it swings to those areas, then you know that's your answer. And you can test it by asking a question that has a clear and definitive answer, such as, I have brown eyes. So if you do have brown eyes, then the pendulum should swing toward yes. But if you have blue eyes, then it should swing towards no. It helps to use the same pendulum chart or method of yes-no every time, or you'll start getting confusing answers. So hold your pendulum loosely and gently between your thumb and index finger, just enough pressure to prevent it from falling, but not a death grip. And next, call to mind the question you're seeking a clear response for. So you can ask your pendulum virtually anything within reason. I'll talk about what not to ask about in a moment. Topics can range from locating a missing object, deciding on the best person to hire for a job, choosing your next best career direction, uncovering the source of your back pain, trying to choose the best gift for someone. You can also ask about the truth behind something that is a mystery to you, like why you haven't heard from someone or what's going to be happening around something in your life coming up soon. You can also ask about things that maybe are gone from your memory banks, like things that happened when you were a child that you forgot, because they are somewhere in your memory banks. And so you're accessing that deep unconscious by asking like names of people you can't remember. The chart can actually spell out the name. You can also use it to assess the health of, say, different organs in your body, what the source of some symptoms you have are about, like if you have hives or an upset stomach. So here's some examples of popular questions to ask. I state every question as a statement and then ask if it's true or false. Or using the chart, you can ask percentage true. So, for example, it serves me to move to a bigger home. It serves me to cancel my subscription to Dropbox. It serves me to hire a part-time admin assistant. My opal ring is somewhere in the attic. The reason I haven't heard back from Chris is because my email didn't go through. Now, another reason I like to have people use this pendulum chart is because you can ask more specific questions. For example, there's percentages from 0 to 100%. So here are some examples of questions you can ask using percentages. Reasons I didn't sleep well last night. Then you can have bullets underneath. Too much coffee earlier in the day. You might get 50% for that. And then you write out inner turmoil about where to focus my business. And then it might hit 50% for that. So it's half coffee and half the inner turmoil. Or maybe you want to find the best kind of fitness regime, so you might make a list of different things you could do and get a percentage of, say, walking 40%, yoga 30%, weight training 30%. So that adds up to 100%. So you can see how much of each would best serve you. And say you're thinking of hiring someone to do some work for you, and there's a few practitioners you could choose from. You can ask, it serves me to use practitioner A, and you get a 50%. It serves me to use practitioner B, and you get a 70%. It serves me to use practitioner C, and you get 0%. So right now, the best one is practitioner B, but it also means you might want to keep looking until you get someone who has a higher rating than just 70%. You can also ask about likelihood of future events in your personal life or in the world. And that's when you need to get specific. It's trickier to get accuracy when it comes to dates on things because there's so many influences that can change the date. But you can ask, it serves me to put my condo on the market by the end of August. And you might see a news item that seems hard to believe or disturbing. You can ask the higher mind how true it is. Traditional media and social media get more clicks when there's bad news because it triggers the survival brain and people can't help themselves and they click on it. And the more clicks, the more ad revenue, the higher ranking you get on the search engines. So a lot of things are exaggerated or even downright made up. And I know a lot of people these days are scrolling through media items and getting very concerned about what they see. And the stories come and then they go and nothing really happens, say in terms of disasters. And that way you can just check inside, to what degree is this true, to what percentage, and then you can recheck your readings and see whether you were right or not, especially if you put a date on it. And the more you see that you were right, the more you'll really believe in this method and you use that for answers instead of what you read in the news. And to build that sense of trust in the process, you can ask about something mundane in the future, like when is that package going to arrive in the mail? Like if you're not sure what date. Or when someone is going to return your email. And then just see how accurate you are. Starting with simpler questions like that can build your confidence. Then I think it's good to progress to those big questions. So say you ask your higher mind, how can I best move forward in my life right now? Or what's the best way for me to contribute to the world in a more significant way? And you get nothing, you go blank. Try the pendulum. Of course, the pendulum doesn't answer complex questions like that, so I find it's best to break that big question down into statements and ask percentage true. For example, it serves me to start a podcast. If you get 0%, that's a no. If you get 100%, that's a yes. But if you get, say, 50%, it's a yes, but not as great as something else. I also think it's important to use the pendulum for personal spiritual growth type questions, like what do I need to let go of in my life right now? And often that's an attitude or a regret. What do I need to learn right now in order to be a better person or a better parent or a better spouse? What fears are keeping me stuck? What old beliefs are keeping me stuck? So those are just some examples. But let's talk about a few other ways to use the pendulum chart. There's a set of numbers you'll see going from 1 to 27. So you could ask number of days it serves me to do a juice fast right now. And maybe it goes to the number 3. Or date of the month it's best to call that potential client back, and maybe it swings towards the number 21 for the 21st. Then you can also ask the pendulum to spell out a word. For example, many of my podcast episodes came from asking the pendulum. For example, the pendulum told me to do an episode on activating epiphanies and on how to use a pendulum. On the lower half of this pendulum chart is what to do if the pendulum goes in circles. I always have the intention that the pendulum should go in a circle if something's wrong about the question. So then you can ask why, because often the reason can be many different things. So you can see on the chart, there's things like it's the wrong time to ask. It's an incomplete question. So that means you have to add something more specific to it usually. Or you might have to ask it differently, which is to reword the question. And then there is danger, don't ask. Now, when would you get an answer like that? Well, it's hard to know, but sometimes if you're asking about somebody else and they don't want you, at this energetic level, asking things about them, you might get that answer, or it really doesn't serve you to know the answer. For example, you might be tempted to ask when you're going to die, like at what age. And I know several people have tried that and often get the answer, don't ask. Perhaps that is because if you knew the exact date, you would act very differently. You might not bother working on goals. You might get depressed about it. It would affect your day-to-day life in a negative way. Now, like any tool, pendulums can be misused. Here are some words of caution. Don't use it if you're feeling emotionally or mentally imbalanced, if you're reactive about something. If you're really stressed, tired, or angry, you'll get inaccurate responses. So to ensure that you're in the right frame of mind, you can actually ask your pendulum before beginning, now is a good time to douse, true or false. Also, don't use the pendulum as a replacement for, say, medical expertise, legal expertise, that kind of thing where the stakes are really high. In other words, don't endanger yourself. Seek trusted professionals to help you where appropriate. It also serves to just douse for yourself, not another person, unless they give you explicit permission. Now, say it's someone who's nonverbal, like a toddler or a very old relative who has dementia, then you can ask their higher mind, their higher self, if it's okay. Just make sure you're doing it from a good intention to help them. And you can ask the pendulum if you have their permission. And of course, approach your pendulum dowsing with an open and unbiased mindset. Maybe you really want to ask about someone else, their feelings or intentions, like whether or not that man you want to date actually likes you, and you really don't want to hear that he doesn't. This will affect the outcome. And you might not have permission to ask about that kind of thing. But you can ask whether it serves you to ask him out on a date, because that's about you, right? Or maybe you want to know if your investment is going to go up in the next month and you really don't want it to say no. That's going to affect the outcome, right? So you have to get into an unattached state. Like, you really have to make it clear that you want the truth, even if your ego doesn't want to hear the truth. Now, if you already made up your mind about something, like you're going to take this job in sales and not that job in admin, then your ego is getting in the way and you probably won't get an accurate answer. So I hope this episode was useful for you. Most people find it puts their mind at ease because most people worry too much about things that never happen. So if you ask questions about things you worry about, just make sure you're in a really neutral state of mind, and then ask and be open to hearing the truth, even if your ego doesn't want to hear it. And often you will get an answer that puts your mind at ease because, as I said, most people worry way too much. And if you get an answer you don't want, then you can ask more questions about how to approach the situation. For example, one of my clients really wanted to get a certain job and wasn't hearing back from the decision makers. So he had to get himself in a completely unattached state, really wanting to hear the answer. And he got that they would be contacting him within the week and not offering him the job. He got the same answer every day. Sure enough, by the end of the week, they contacted him and had offered the job to someone else. But it was okay because he stopped putting all his eggs in that basket and started seeking other opportunities, and another better one came through. If he'd just been hoping for that one thing and spending the whole week worrying, it wouldn't have been good. But another time he was absolutely sure he had appendicitis. So he asked the pendulum, and the pendulum kept saying no. And he went to the doctor, and sure enough, he did not have appendicitis. It was just some bad food they ate. After that, he really trusted the pendulum a lot more, and anytime he was worried, he could just get his answer right there and then take the necessary next step. And he wouldn't let himself just loop about things. Now, your pendulum isn't always correct, so it does help to verify in other ways, but it can really help build your intuitive abilities, which I think we all have in spades, but it just got dialed down for most of us, and we can dial it back up again. And ironically, I think that if you do believe something is going to happen for you, it can actually help you manifest a goal because you're not worrying that it won't happen, if that makes sense. So use it in whatever way feels appropriate for you. And do download this free PDF of a pendulum chart. See the link in the show notes. Otherwise, you can type the words Pendulum Chart into your search engine and probably find other ones you can download. Or you can just use yes, no, true, false without any kind of chart. So that's it for today. I do hope that was helpful. In the meantime, please hit subscribe. Please like this episode and do share it so others can find it. And may you get some amazing answers this week. Until next time, thanks for listening.